Hello and welcome to Ardagh Rugby CDM induction. The induction lasts around about 30 minutes, so make sure that you're comfortable, and if you have any questions, save them up until the end and we'll answer them then. Entry to site. All visitors need to show a COVID lateral flow test slide and the NHS text on your phone daily at the gatehouse. All visitors will have their temperature taken before entry to site, and day visitors need to sign in at the gatehouse and will need to follow the same procedure. All contractors need to sign in at the gatehouse, but they also need to sign in at the CDM cabin, which is part of the Portakabin village. COVID-19 control measures. All COVID-19 control measures must be adhered to whilst on site, and we understand that these change regularly. Face coverings must be worn when within 1 metre of another person, and try to maintain 2 metre social distancing. In the Portakabin canteens and welfare areas, we try to have 3 persons per table and use hand sanitizer frequently. Induction check sheet. As part of this induction process, you'll need to fill in an induction check sheet. You'll be asked to fill in who you are, your next of kin, so who would you like us to contact should you have an accident or an event, who you work for, what work you'll be carrying out on site, and where you'll be working on site, plus how long you're going to be working here, just roughly. This will allow Ardagh Group to initially assess the risk and act accordingly. You'll then be asked to read, understand and agree to abide by your company's risk assessment and method statement. You'll be asked to declare if you are using certain machinery or equipment, and then prove your competency by licence or certificate. Then sign the induction form to say that you've fully understood the induction and you've read and understood the COVID-19 control measures. If the answer to the above questions is no, then actions required to resolve this before you start work. All persons must understand this induction and the control measures before entering site. Induction check sheet. Do not start work unless you've read, understood and agreed to abide by your company's risk assessment and method statement and then signed. Do not use plant, equipment, machinery or tools unless you're competent and have supplied a current competency certificate, for example forklift truck, MUPE, PASMA, etc. Personal protective equipment, PPE. It's your employer's responsibility to supply you with PPE, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you use it correctly. Mandatory on site are face coverings must be worn when within 1 metre of other people. Hearing protection, this is standard hearing protection only, no musical devices. Hard hats, not bump caps. Safety footwear, steel toe cap, steel sole and anti-slip. Safety glasses or overglass if you wear spectacles. High-vis vest, waistcoat or jacket. You'll need blue tape to wrap around wedding bands and only wedding bands. No jewellery, watches, etc. You need to wear gloves appropriate to the activity or task and which is highlighted within your risk assessment and method statement. And whatever other PPE that's required for your activity to keep you safe. Contamination prevention. This is classed as a food factory, and so it's producing beverage cans, and we need to make sure that we protect the integrity of the product at all times. Do not wear anything which may cause contamination in the production area. No jewellery, chains, rings, piercings, etc. No watches and no music headphones. No food or drink to be taken into the production area. Keep insect screens on the exterior doors closed. Wash hands after using the toilet and before entering the production area. Always replace conveyor covers and do not leave items on top of the conveyors. Airborne dust will contaminate cans, so this must be adequately controlled. When working above production areas, be aware of the risk of contamination. If lines are running near the working area, they should be covered and screened off. Layer pads, pallets, etc. should not be used for any other purpose. Conduct on site, BBS, Behavioural Based Safety. BBS is a system encouraged to make safe working areas for all people. Individuals can carry out observations on each other, including contractors. The results are recorded for monitoring purposes, and anyone can observe. Persons being observed are not named. Cards are available at the entrance to the production area, and you can complete the card and give it to your supervisor or drop it in the box near to the CDM or production office. Mobile phones. The use of mobile phones is not permitted whilst you're working or whilst within the production area, except for authorised persons. These authorised persons need to be authorised by ARDA site. This includes checking the time. The use of mobiles for personal calls should only be made during rest periods. Conduct on site. Remember, you have a duty to yourself and to your colleagues to maintain a safe working environment at all times. It's your responsibility to ensure that you are working safely. If you're not, then you'll be stopped. Do not indulge in horseplay. All operatives must work in accordance with our site induction, which details the control measures to be adopted in order to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. All operators working on site must have read and understood and signed the induction paperwork to agree they have understood all of the control measures. Certain ARDA policies are applicable to everyone. For example, bullying and harassment policy, drink and drugs at work policy. Hazards within the site. This is a list of hazards, but it's not exhaustive. There may be more, and you may be bringing some hazards onto site yourself. But noise, flammable liquids, cutting fluids used in the process, chemicals also used within the process, forklift trucks used inside and outside, HGV movements, especially within the yard area, high-speed equipment which starts automatically, confined spaces, working at height and or roof work, wet slippery floors, plus more. One that I need to mention also is the overhead power lines. If you're working outside, you need to make sure that you take this into account with your risk assessment method statements, but also your actions every day. HitNot device. Wearing of a PAD, personal alarm device, and a high-vis vest in the warehouse is mandatory. HitNot is a proximity detection system, and this technology uses magnetic fields to detect people and traffic danger. So you need to, first of all, if you're working within the warehouse, you need to collect a warehouse permit to work and give this to the forklift truck drivers in the office, just so that they know that you're working in this area. You then take a pad from the charger and place it in a pouch or hang it around your neck in the special lanyard. When you leave the warehouse, return the pad to the charging area, and the chargers are located next to the baler and the finished pallet area. HitNot device. So when a pedestrian enters a forklift warning zone, Both his pad and the forklift alarm will give 3 beeps, and the light will go on to warn of the threat. You need to be able to see it, so don't put the hit knot in your pocket. It needs to be either on a lanyard or somewhere that you can see it. When the pedestrian enters the danger zone, the pad and the alarm will sound and the light will light up continuously until the threat is over and the pedestrian is out of danger. The hit knot is not 100% a control measure to make you safe. You still need to be very vigilant when you're within the warehouse area. The area with the hatched area shows where the hit knot is required, so it's the warehouse and in front of the loading bay areas. Forklift trucks. Be aware of forklift trucks' presence around the site. This is both inside and outside, not just the warehouse. It also sometimes affects the production area. Contractors are not permitted to use the RDARS forklift truck unless given prior written approval. Assume forklift trucks always have the right of way, whatever the circumstances. Do not position yourself within 2 meters of a forklift truck. Keep to the designated walkways where you can, and forklifts should sound their horns to notify of approach. Please be aware of your surroundings. Operating plant and equipment. Only trained and competent persons with a current certificate submitted and checked by RDAR CDM project team to operate plant and equipment. If you get found operating plant and equipment and you don't have a certificate and we haven't seen it, it's an instant dismissal from site. Plant and equipment must be checked in accordance with legislation, daily, weekly or monthly, and these checks must be recorded. Plant and equipment must have their statutory thorough examination and inspection certificates checked by CDM project team. Plant must have the details of who is controlling it, a contact name and a contact number displayed on it, or a plant site number. If you come and see me, I can give you a number for the plant, and then you don't have to display that information. Keys are not to be left on unattended plant or equipment to prevent unauthorised use. Vehicles must be parked safely and charging cables must not cause a trip hazard. Care must be taken when moving forklift trucks through the production compartment, and you should have a banksman at all times when moving any vehicle through the production compartment. Chemicals and hazardous substances. Before you bring any chemicals, substances or mixtures onto the site, you must supply a COSH risk assessment and a material safety data sheet for each item. The material safety data sheet must be available for review at the point of storage, transport and use. Quantities should be kept to the minimum quantity for use, and chemicals must be stored, transported and used in accordance with the manufacturer's material safety data sheet, and only used by competent persons. Dust and fumes. Welding fumes. Welding fume control measures must be built into your company's risk assessment and method statement. Control measures must be used to protect all persons from the welding fumes, not just the welder. Control measures such as ventilation or personal protective equipment must be suitable and sufficient, and equipment must be maintained in good working order. If you use the welding bay, which is outside, you must clean the compartment before you leave each day. Dust and fumes. Silica dust. Silica dust is created by cutting, drilling, planing, grinding, etc. Of products such as brick, block, concrete, etc. Control measures must be used to protect all persons from the silica dust, not just the person that's producing it. Control measures such as extraction, damping or personal protective equipment must be suitable and sufficient, and equipment must be maintained in good working order at all times. The two pictures that you see here is one would be acceptable, the one on the left, where he's using water as a suppressant, and the one on the right is totally unacceptable. Electrical work. Electrical work can only be carried out by competent and qualified persons. High voltage work can only be carried out by an appointed person. Following the Electricity at Work Act and regulations, all portable and transportable electrical equipment must have a PAT test, and it must be in date. For construction sites, this needs to be every 3 months. All portable tools must be 110 volts, and working dead is preferred. If working live is to be carried out, a safe system of work for live working must be approved before that work starts. Overhead working and working at height. Falling objects. Make sure the falling object zone is cordoned off below the works. When working on open grate flooring, you must have a tarpaulin on your floor working area to prevent falling objects. All tools and parts must be placed in a box and not on conveyors or other surfaces. If you're using sharp objects such as podgers or chisels, you need to use a tool lanyard attached either to your wrist or to your belt. The area must be cleared of parts and debris at the end of each day. If an area is fenced off or guarded off, do not enter. Falling objects can cause serious injury and in some cases death. Overhead working and working at height. Falls from height. All working at height must have a risk assessment and a method statement approved before the work can start. All working at height must have a permit to work issued. All persons working at height must be trained and competent to carry out the work activity safely. All working at height equipment must be inspected before each use, and all working at height equipment must have a current thorough examination certificate. Do not remove edge protection unless permitted by permit to work. Use the hierarchy of control when working at height, so avoid working at height if you can, prevent a fall if you can, and if you can't, then you need to mitigate the circumstances of any fall. No person should be put in a position where a fall from height could occur. Overhead power cables. So if you're working external to the production area, in the top car park or within the yard or the access road to the yard, you'll need to take into account the overhead power cables. Do not start any work under or near to the overhead power cables unless you have permission from RDAR and an accepted set of risk assessment method statements, and if necessary, Western Power on site. If you're in doubt of this, just talk to us and we'll give you some advice. Permission to use plant, MUPS, cranes, forklift trucks, IABs or any equipment that could breach the exclusion zone around the power lines must be given by RDAR before plant is taken into this area. Again, if you're in doubt, come and ask the project team and we'll help you. Overhead power cables within the yard area. In the drawing here, the red lines on this drawing show the location of the overhead power cables. Ensure that you check the location of your work and ensure that you have all the necessary controls to work safely. If in doubt, ask the RDAR safety team. Yard area. So the area that you see here in yellow is completely pedestrian free. If you need to access the yellow area, you must have a yard permit to work. Drivers working within 1 metre of their vehicle are not classed as pedestrians. Once they go outside of that 1 metre, they're now pedestrians and they need to get a yard permit to work and follow all the other safety control measures You must wear high-vis clothing when accessing this area. This includes the walkway. Waste and environmental controls. Do not empty any substances into the drain before first consulting with the relevant member of staff or project manager. Pay attention to the signs on the waste skips for correct segregation. Do not mix waste. Inform shift manager immediately in the event of a major spillage, and any land contamination should be reported to the local environmental authority or by the EH&S team leader / manager. Fire prevention. Smoking is strictly prohibited on site and in vehicles, and this includes e-cigarettes and vaping. There is one designated smoke shelter on site, and this is located outside the contractor's cabins. If this shelter is full, please wait your turn and remember social distancing. Anyone caught smoking outside this area will be subject to the appropriate action being taken. Do not smoke in your vehicle unless your vehicle is off-site, and hot work requires the appropriate permit to work. Fire prevention. Hot works. In principle, hot work is not allowed anywhere, including outside, except for the welding bay. Before any hot work can be considered, an alternative method assessment form must be filled in and signed by authorised plant representatives such as a plant manager, engineering or health and safety manager. If there is no method possible, then hot work risk assessment must be completed by the project engineer. A permit to work must then be completed and must be signed by the plant manager. When work is complete, the area is to be fire watched for an hour. The permit can then be signed off and returned to the site representative. Fire evacuation. If you discover a fire, do not take risks and do not put yourself in danger. Do not attack the fire unless you're trained and it's safe to do so. Raise the alarm by operating the nearest alarm call point. There's a picture of that at the top there. Leave the building by the nearest safe route. Close all doors behind you. Report to the fire assembly point, which is located in the upper car park near to the gatehouse. The contractor's reporting area is right next to the gatehouse, but it's in the car park. Stay there until instructed to do otherwise by the emergency response team, ERT, or manager. Please familiarise yourself with all exits and alarm call points in your work area. It's worthwhile noting as well, when you enter the site, make sure that you print your name clearly so that it's easy to call your name out when we're doing the fire roll call. Emergency response. There is a fire alarm test every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, so unless it goes on for a long time, there's no need to evacuate. The start and the finish of the test will be announced. Know where the exits are located. Exits have signage. There are two types of alarm. One is an intermittent alarm tone. You don't have to evacuate. During this time, the ERT will investigate where the fire could be, and they will make a decision on whether to go to a continuous tone. So a continuous tone will mean evacuate immediately. Do not collect belongings and report to the contractor's assembly point in the car park. A member of the management / ERT will say when it's safe to go back into the building. Accidents, first aid and near misses. Report all accidents and near misses to a coordinator, team leader or shift manager. All accidents must be reported in the accident book. If you see a hazard or have a near miss, let us know so we can take action to prevent it happening again. The near miss or hazard book is located in the production office. If you have an accident or feel unwell, ask to see a first aider, and there's a list of first aiders in the corridor by the canteen. If you have or develop a physical mental condition which could affect your personal safety on site or the safety of other persons, you must report such a condition to the ARDA site project manager so that a risk assessment can be made to reflect these conditions. This information will be kept strictly confidential. Housekeeping. Housekeeping is the foundation of safety, and it's an important factor for improving safety. Clear work area of all redundant items, i.e. rags, parts, containers, pallets, etc. Leave the area in the same condition as you find it, or better. 10 to 15 minutes at the end of each day should be used to clear your area of any rubbish or items that could cause an accident or fire. Do not store parts or assembly within the production compartment. Do not cover walkways or access egress doorways. Red card system. Behavioural procedure for the project. So contractors, individuals, companies who clearly ignore the site safety rules described in the site CDM, safety induction, construction phase plan, work permit or approved method statement and risk assessment will be managed using the site's non-compliance disciplinary procedure. The project will operate a two-tier system, namely yellow and red card. The construction phase plan will detail the safety breaches which fall under the yellow and red card headings. Again, this is not exhaustive. A yellow card will be issued to crews or individuals who breach any of the yellow card non-compliances. This will require a crew or individual to stand down for 1 hour to allow the breach to be rectified. Such remedial action may include reassessment of the task, house cleaning exercise, or reinduction or retraining. Where an individual or crew breaches one of the listed red card items, they will be dismissed from site for a minimum of 2 days. A decision will be made between the principal contractor and the client whether this person will be allowed back onto site. Lockout tagout. Before any maintenance, engineering work is carried out on any machine, it must be isolated from all energy sources. It's not enough just to switch the machine off. The energy source must be, and residual energy must be made safe. It must never be assumed that an electrical circuit is dead until it has been proved to be so. Residual energy must be removed and the machine process made safe before work can start. All isolations must be secured to prevent inadvertent re-energizing, so each person must have their own lock on the isolation. Permit to work, PTW. Permits to work are required for working on the following activities and tasks. General permit to work, which is weekly or could be weekly. Hot work is daily. Access to the warehouse area, which is given by the shift manager or project engineer. Confined space, which will be daily. Working at height, electrical work, roof access, which is daily. Yard access, again, which is daily. And access to the wastewater compartment. These are issued by the ARDA project engineer in charge of you, and once complete must be signed off or cancelled. Main corridor. So the main corridor, if you come in from the reception area, you can see that there is a canteen on the left. The male toilets are on the right, although for all contractors we will be using the contractors' toilets, which are part of the Portakabin village. If you go down to the bottom of this corridor and turn right, you'll have access to the production area and the production office and the first aid room. Production access. Once you've turned right, you'll see in front of you the visitors' hygiene area where you can wash your hands, dry them, but there's also a couple of rolls of blue tape that you can put around any wedding rings should you want to keep those on, but only wedding rings, only wedding bands. Once you turn left there, you have the entrance to the production area, so all relevant PPE must be worn past this point, and then on the left just before this main access is the production office where the hazard and near miss book is located, and it's also the entrance to the first aid room. Welfare facilities. So welfare facilities are available to you. We have toilets within the contractor's welfare facility porta cabins. Within there are washing facilities. Hand sanitizer is available to you at key points throughout the site, and make sure that you use these regularly. Food and eating facilities within the contractor's welfare facility only, so we don't want to see anybody eating anywhere other than the canteens within the contractor's welfare porta cabins. Within the porta cabins there's also drying and changing facilities. For first aid, we have first aid within the Ardagh site, and there's a first aid kit available also within the project office. The accident book is available within the project office also. Canteen facilities. The canteen is available to you only at stated times. See the notice board near the canteen entrance. For the moment, it's quite relaxed, but if we get lots of contractors in at one time, we may impose a few timing rules on that. Do not consume food or drink in the canteen. Instead, use one of the contractor's porta cabin canteens. Do not crowd the canteen, and if necessary, return later when it's less crowded. Do not enter the canteen in dirty or soiled clothing. Induction presentation complete. Any additions or changes to this induction will be presented to you by the person completing the induction process. If you have any questions regarding the induction, please raise these now, or if you have any thoughts further on, please come and see me and I'll answer your questions. Thank you for your attendance.